Okay, welcome back to the Teaching and Learning Podcast, everybody. Again, this is really one of our key elements in Deerpark ISD this fall semester in our professional development efforts is to share stories amongst teachers about different ideas, different things they're doing well, different ways that they're adapting their instruction. There's been so many adaptations this year based on students coming back, different elements of how our instruction is going. And we're never more impressed than we are right now of the work our teachers are always excited to share their work. This week, I'm excited to say that we're being joined by one of our instructional coaches, Ms. Jane New. She's an instructional coach for elementary and secondary science in the McNeil Learning Community, and she's going to sit down and talk with an 8th grade science team from Deerpark Middle School. And before we jump into that interview, just got Jane here and just want to know from Jane, what is maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 things that our listeners and viewers will learn this week if they join us for this conversation?
Sure. This 8th grade team at Deerpark had problems engaging students. They had a huge workload, and they were looking for a way to give real-time feedback. And so what you're going to learn is how they solve those problems, and it's really fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. I just finished watching it. I know I learned a few things, and really love the way that they talked about how their efforts have expanded and grown over time. You know, they every week they feel like they're improving their processes and making things a little more clear, a little more simple to keep up with for the students and also for them, in the ways that they're managing their work. So thank you, Jane. Thank you, everybody else, for tuning in this week or clicking on our email or watching our video or listening to the podcast. I think you're going to enjoy our conversation. And again, remember, if you listen all the way to the end, we'll give a code word which will enter you into a drawing to win a prize from Teaching and Learning this week. So make sure you do listen to the end. And so I'm not going to take up any more time because we've got a great conversation this week. So we're going to jump right into it now. And we're going to kick it over to that interview. So thank you, everybody. And we'll hear from you at the end.
All right, awesome. Okay, so we're going to start with introductions. So as the interviewer, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Jane New, and I am the science instructional coach for the McNeil Vertical Learning Community from grade 3 through 12. And I'd like to introduce to you today the Deerpark Middle School 8th grade team for science on that wonderful campus. So we can begin with Ms. Jones.
My name is Shanna Jones. I have been teaching since 2015. I teach 8th grade science at Deerpark Middle School.
Okay.
I'm Lucinda Pogue. I've been teaching for 10 years now, and I teach 7th and 8th grade at Deerpark Middle School.
I'm Gary Hartle. This is my 5th year teaching, and I teach 8th grade science, and I have the tag students as well.
All right, wonderful. Okay, today we're going to start talking about a strategy that this team has begun. How long ago do you think you started it? Maybe
a month and a half.
Month at least.
Yeah. Okay. And it's called the one task approach. So my first question is to you, what were some of the challenges you were facing that led to the development of this one task approach?
Well, initially when we launched online this year, we were doing what we know how to do from last year. We were doing developing assignments and developing lessons like we did last year with our slides, and then uploading worksheets and putting documents into Schoology with the expectation that the students would be able to do work the same way that they did last year. And it wasn't until we were overwhelmed with grading. Students weren't able to complete the tasks, and at the same time I was going home and I was seeing 2 of my own children who are in our school district, one high school and one middle school here at Deerpark, who were also struggling to complete their assignments. They couldn't find their assignments. They didn't know what assignments to turn in. They turned in 5, but there were 3 more. They weren't focused on any specific content that was like TEAC specific, and so it made me literally rethink my approach. Like, what am I doing? Because I'm doing this in my classroom as well. And so I rethought the approach and decided that it was probably best if we came up with a way to structure our assignment to be TEAC specific, either a short assignment for that day for that specific TEAC, or a week-long assignment that they can work on and progress through as we move through the TEACs. Because it was overwhelming. I mean, it was extremely overwhelming for the children. It was extremely overwhelming for me as a teacher, and for the parents who couldn't navigate Schoology, much less help their kids with the assignments. They were struggling to try to cope, to figure out where the assignments were, how many had to be done, how do you do the assignment. It was just a big struggle. So we wanted to simplify that and make it easier.
Okay, so it was a problem, challenges on many fronts. And so out of that came the idea of the one task concept. So if you could take a moment to explain the concept to us briefly.
Shall I?
Yes.
So the idea is, it's just like she said, we initially were approaching it like traditional teaching methods, and we would have an assignment that might have a short video, a sim resource like organized notes, maybe a practice, a part of the assignment, and then the actual like assignment. So 3, 4, sometimes 5 parts of an assignment, which we thought in a normal scenario would be doable. And like Ms. Jones said, it was just overwhelming for us as well as the students, and we were just falling behind. The students weren't completing the work. So she had the initial idea, and we developed it together, is that we're going to build just one assignment. So we're going to look at the learning objective for the day and build an assignment that specifically, like I call it the laser focus, just really focus on what is it they need to take away, what kind of skill do they need to have mastered by the end of that lesson, and to build a short lesson, definitely quality over quantity. So with this block schedule, we found that we would have maybe one class day to cover a learning objective. So it really needed to be about focus and quality. So we started building assignments that were much shorter, reasonably able to be accomplished within the 50 minutes of asynchronous time that we had, and were rigorous enough that they were showing mastery of that learning objective.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you were able to plan, say, the experience that a student would have. So how you start your lesson with purpose, and then you work backwards design. How did that whole process fall into this?
Well, we always go backwards by design. So we look at the ultimate end product, which in this case would be the summative assessment. We look at it together, and we determine, what kind of skills are they going to need to master this assessment. And so we build our lessons based on and build our assignments on how can we focus on that learning objective and in a very efficient and refined way, to where it's reasonable that they can get it done each day, but at the same time they can develop and show that mastery of each step they need to eventually get to the summative and show that they've mastered all those learning objectives. But we build from the assessment backwards. We look at the objectives, then we build our daily lessons, our slides, what we're actually going to teach, and then we build the assignments to reinforce and show demonstration of their mastery by completing the assignments, which we can talk about in a little bit how that looks.
Okay.
And they're built with the intent of engagement too. So if you take a few steps back and remember last year, and we were ordering worksheets from Print Shop, they would come in, warm up on paper, worksheet, here's your assignment, textbook, some things were digital, and now we're in a completely digital environment. How do we keep a student engaged in a completely digital environment? We make our assignments digital, not uploading a worksheet that we would have done last year, but modifying that worksheet to match the verb that's in the TEK that they need to be able to master so that they understand that concept. So there was a lot of modification transitioning from PDF files into Google Slides and interactive design assignments.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what kind of tweaks have you made from the original concept? And what have you learned? What kind of challenges did you face? How did you adjust?
You mind if I? Well, when we had the genesis of this idea, so it was funny. It was a process for sure, because the very first thing I tried to do when we tried the One Task Wonder, the first assignment I built, actually, as Ms. Jones said, it was actually a worksheet that we had done in the past that we felt like was a good activity. It was on the periodic table, and so what it did was scanned the worksheet in, I put that image into a Google slide, and then I created another slide for answers. So, I mean, basically they were doing a worksheet. And I thought it was very self-explanatory, but it was kind of a flop. I mean, I'm not even sure if Ms. Jones and Ms. Poe continued to use it more than like one class. Cause I tried it, I stuck with it, but it really was a flop. And that was when I realized, well, I'm just kind of doing the same thing, but in a digital realm. And that was when I made the leap to, okay, I'm going to create something that does do the same thing, but does it in a more graphic way. Like she said, they're living in a digital world. This whole school is mostly digital. So I started trying to create things that were graphic and visual, and the amount of things that they actually have to type, is limited. And so drag and drops and highlighting and manipulating symbols and things like that has become kind of more the norm. But that was definitely a learning process, because even though we had, embarked on this journey at first, I was basically trying to rehash what we had done in the past, and that did not work. So it's been a learning process, but that was definitely one thing that we're tweaking.
Continuously.
I mean, I built an assignment for the last unit on lunar phases, and I kind of, I bit off more than I could chew and more than they can chew, and I mean, Ms. Jones was honest with me about it, and I asked, and it really was a bit much. So it's a matter of it being long enough, the lesson being long enough and rigorous enough, and on target enough that it gets the job done, but also, plus I'm extremely interested in astronomy. So I think I just kind of went hog wild with it, and it was just too much. It was like, there was too many questions, too many things to do, too many tasks. And it ended up being like, I think 14 slides in this assignment, and I was all proud of it, but, and then, the real proof is in the pudding, is like when they get to working on the assignment, and when you've got, student after student after student saying, I don't understand what to do on slide 3. It's like, okay, I overdid it. It was either too much in their eyes, because it was a screen full of questions, with text boxes, or maybe the directions weren't concise enough. So it's like she said, we're just continuously tweaking it. And, immediately after that lesson, I built one on tides, which I think we all agree was like, it was short and to the point. It was graphically based, and the kids really enjoyed doing it. And, it emphasized the learning objective. And I think, it was a good one.
It's also allowed us to provide consistent, immediate feedback, because we can be live online with them in these assignments for the students who verbalize that they need help and the students who don't verbalize that they need help. We can work with them in an online environment, one-on-one, to give them the support that they need by utilizing these types of assignments. They could be stuck on a slide. We can jump in on that slide with them, versus, giving them an assignment, grading it a week later, then giving them feedback when we've moved on. So it's been very resourceful.
Absolutely. I mean, the last part of the question is, what strategies have we tried to adjust for? I mean, that was like our biggest aha moment when we started to refine the actual assignments. But it's that idea of, and we did this, early on. The expectation is, after our synchronous teaching time, the expectation is that you stay in the class, you stay in the meeting with us, okay? And you begin working on the assignment. And like Ms. Jones mentioned, Schoology has that awesome feature of where we can just kind of jump in and out of students' work and see them real time. And I've had students who are shy to even speak on the microphone, so we can have just a text box conversation within their document. I can say, look here, take a look at this, think about this. So it's like being in the classroom. We're actually giving them real-time feedback. Some students are brave and they'll actually ask a question out on the microphone. All that's, it's kind of a minority. But I try to encourage that, because I think we all know that if one student has a question, there's probably 5 more in the class that are afraid to ask it. So it really starts to emulate being in the classroom with real-time students. And so another thing that we started doing, just kind of evolved naturally, was having them stay in the lesson. And the goal, the kind of like the idealization of it is, you complete the assignment, you let me know you're done. Okay, you don't submit it. We take a look at it. And if it's done, if it's done completely correct, you've got 100 on it. You've shown you've mastered that learning objective, and you can submit and go. You've shown that you've mastered the objective. And so you get your first, crop of people submitting their stuff, who definitely got the objective. But what I find neat is, after they start leaving the lesson, then you're kind of down to the kids who are struggling a little bit more. So then it becomes almost like a small group, type of thing. And then the kids, what I found, maybe y'all agree, is kind of like when those early people have submitted their document and gone, those other kids open up a little bit. Yep. And so then they start asking questions, and then it kind of becomes like almost like a tutorial. I mean, and I've had kids that stay until 5 minutes before my next class, and I have to end it.
Yeah.
And so they're staying in class, they're staying in the meeting with us, they're asking questions, they're getting the support, and that is one of the biggest benefits that I see in doing it this way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's the closest we found to an actual classroom being virtual.
Yeah,
For sure.
And what has been the reaction of students and their families to this one task?
Well, here's an example from first period today. Our assignment, I had every single assignment turned in except for one student. I've got one student who did not submit the assignment. But every single student turned it in, completed at 100%. And so they're ready to move forward with the next part of the TEAC on the next class period. Yeah,
I mean, and we should mention that before. I mean, when we were trying it at the very beginning of the year, our submission rates were just so low. And as soon as we started doing this, I mean, it was like night and day. Now, not 100%, but I'm talking about going from 3 or 4 people completing the assignment and getting the 100 and moving on to 80 or 90% of the class doing it. Sometimes 100, but that's a high bar, to hold yourself to. But the amount of students who are staying in and working on the work, getting help, and then ultimately turning it in has just increased a huge amount. Mm-hmm. And I was walking on the campus this morning, and I had a teacher stop me and say, "Well, guess what a student told me yesterday?" And I said, "What?" And she says that I'm doing it the wrong way, that I should run my class the way Mr. Hartle does. He only gives us one assignment and we can actually get it done. I just thought that was neat. So you were asking about the kids' reactions. I think they like it. I mean, they don't feel stressed and overwhelmed, and they can get the job done and know that, like Ms. Jones said, they're ready for the next learning objective the next time they come to class. If they've done that work, gotten that 100 and shown their mastery, they're ready for the next learning objective. So I think it takes a load off their back. I've gotten, when we first started doing this, I believe we both did, but I know I sent out an email to parents explaining the process, and I got so many, I think about 10 or 15 thank you emails from parents. Mm-hmm. Because Ms. Jones is a parent in the district, I'm a parent in the district, and I can tell you that these kids are overwhelmed. Yeah, Ms. Oak as well, I'm sorry. These kids are overwhelmed, and so anything we can do to ameliorate that pressure, I think is a great thing.
Yeah.
The parents were overwhelmed too. I mean, extremely overwhelmed with the new platform, with virtual learning, with all kids starting out online for the first 3 weeks. I had parents that I would talk to on the phone that were also trying to get their master's degree in school while they were working from home and trying to teach their kids these lessons. So that's kind of, also how we decided that we were going to extend the synchronous time, to where we got the lesson done. Because when we ended it and we taught the lesson and said, okay, go do your work. And then the parents were having to help them because maybe they didn't understand the concept when that time period was up. So then when we kept them online with us, the parents were relieved, they were relaxed, and that pressure was taken off of them because now their student is still online with the teacher learning the content while they're trying to navigate the assignment.
That's awesome. I know that other teachers have implemented this on your campus in other content areas and the like, and even in science and the other grades. Mm-hmm. So that has been successful campus-wide for lots of PLCs. Yes, please.
I was gonna say as soon as we started this in 8th grade, I went back to my 7th grade team and went, hey, this is working. Let's start doing this, and we immediately started doing the same thing. In 6th grade, immediately doing the same thing. So science kind of had its own little experiment going on with, keeping them longer and doing these one task assignments. And it really has helped us, gain back our kids on all fronts. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. What other kind of benefits have you seen from this in terms of your own workload or anything like that?
I have more time to plan the lessons and design the activities to make it engaging, but very, very, very intentional for what I want them to understand by the end of the class period, rather than being behind on grading because I'm trying to grade all of these different things. I mean, and that's another way, that's where the one task came from. I was very intentional on not calling it a one assignment, but one task, because one of the biggest mistakes I made at the beginning of the school year was thinking I could run it like a normal classroom. I could have a discussion question, right? I'm thinking 4 things to do, should take them 20 minutes, right? Discussion question, fill out a frame, here's your assignment, and just a quick formative at the end so I can get some data. And I mean, I was wrong. I was really wrong. They looked at that and they were overwhelmed. And then if that was just my class, and that was 4 tasks in my class, and if they were absent for one day, 8 times 4 is 32. They're coming back to 32 plus the 32 that they're going to owe on that day. And that's just missing one day. And so what I noticed is that I wasn't as stressed out trying to get them to turn in assignments or trying to grade the assignments. And I felt better being able to provide them like immediate feedback. And so it's like a teaching process, even though we are in a virtual environment. So it was definitely a benefit for me.
I agree totally. And I mean, I think I already said it, but I think the biggest benefit I've seen is that the kids at the very beginning of the year who were really falling off to the wayside, they now, by staying in the meeting with us and working with us, you know, virtually one-on-one or in small group type scenario, I mean, they're learning to advocate for themselves and speak up and ask for help. And we're there to help, you know, whereas before it was, you know, we were doing this synchronous, you know, direct teach basically type of scenario, and then saying, okay, good luck. You know, there wasn't much really chance there for interaction, direct interaction, and chance for us to, you know, support the kids who really needed that. So that's been the biggest benefit I've seen, is that we have that opportunity now to work directly with them, have conversations with them. And now with the new breakout room thing, you know, we could even talk one-on-one with them, you know, privately. And that's been the biggest benefit. And I think that they're starting to become more comfortable and stay in the meeting instead of just, you know, giving up and just, you know, leaving the meeting and not doing the work. They're staying there. They're working with us. They're taking our comments and our, you know, and suggestions for corrections, and they're doing that. And that's a huge benefit.
You're also building all those relationships, even during this difficult time where you're not face to face with them. Awesome. Is there anything else that you'd like to share, or advice to teachers that you'd like to give?
This is a continuous process. It's constantly evolving. It's not perfect now. It wasn't perfect when we started. It won't be perfect in 3 months. It evolves as we evolve throughout the school year. I mean, our environment's changing, our city is changing, whether we attend virtually or online is, you know, hinging on data from the community. And so you just have to be able to be willing to evolve and to adapt as each day comes, because what we started out with isn't what we have right now. And this isn't where we're going to stop. We're going to keep going because it's just a constant process, but it's worth it. I
agree. I mean, you know, the idea of reflecting upon our practices and refining them, you know, has always been a thing. But in this paradigm, it's just like, it's just constant. And that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. But I think as long as you're open to being reflective and, like, you know, not sticking to something out of like habit or like some sort of principle, but what's actually working, you know, and what's not working, and being willing to try something new and be willing to make mistakes, you know. And it's like, I think the kids are showing us a lot of grace. I mean, they understand that we're in as much of a new situation as they are. And, you know, I think being willing to be open and try something new and be willing to, I hate to use the word fail, but maybe not be quite as successful as you would like. And then to think about that, you know, why you weren't and what you can do differently to be more successful, both for yourself and for the students. I think this is a great opportunity. I mean, it's just like, it's a chance to try all new things, and some of those things are going to flop and some of those things are going to work really well. So I think that's the only advice that I would give, is be open to, you know, being real about what's working and what's not, as much as you might want it to.
Yeah, I think, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you know, again, I haven't been as much involved in the process as these two. They take care of me for 8th grade, but being willing to work with your teammates and being honest with them, making suggestions, going, hey, I don't think this part's going to work. Just really having that communication just in your team is going to be a big part of it too. Because we all have different levels of students. And so knowing what's going to work and what's not going to work, and not being offended if we tweak something that they gave us, has also been a big help working with as a team.
Yeah, helping each other stretch a little. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think another valuable thing, just going off of what Mr. Hartle said, was just showing your students that you're learning and modeling that you're a learner and that you have the grit to continue to learn and continue to stick with it because it's important. That's only going to translate into them doing the same. So
I hope so.
It will.
yeah, it will. I got confidence.
Thank you, Deerpark 8th grade science team, and thank you, Jane, for hosting that conversation today. And I got to tell you, every video and audio interview I hear from our teachers, whether it's a whole team or an individual teacher from a campus over the last few weeks, the more humbled I am by the incredible amount of just personal growth and improvement and change and courage and heroism that's going on our campuses and in our classrooms every day in Round Rock ISD. So thank you again for opening up yourselves, that team, to share some things that maybe weren't working as well as they were hoping, and then how you adjusted, how we recognize that what we're doing is doing our best to get better every single day. That's something we've never done before. So thank you again. Like I said, at the end of all of these, we like to give away something. If you watched or listened all the way to the end, last week we gave away a copy of Book Blended. This week, we're going to give away a copy of the workbook accompaniment. So the blended workbook, which if you happen to have a copy of that blended book already, this goes along with that. And it's a little more interactive, things you can do to plan out some of your work. And maybe it'll come in handy over the next several weeks as we continue to showcase incredible things that are going on in the classrooms and throughout Round Rock ISD. We're going to continue to share some of the ways that individuals or PLCs are structuring their courses, making adjustments, and doing everything they can every day for our kids. So thank you again. Our code word this week, let's see, it's going to be workbook. So last week we gave away the blended book. This week it's the blended workbook. So our code word this week, workbook. Email workbook to teaching_learning@roundrockisd.org, and you will be entered for a chance to win this book right here, that if you're watching the video, you can see it. If you're listening on audio, take my word for it and check the email that went out, and you can find the video. So thanks again, everybody, for listening this week. We will be back next week with another great feature. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please just go ahead and maybe even leave us a review or give us a 5-star rating. If you're watching this on YouTube, share it with somebody, share it with a fellow Round Rock ISD teacher, or really anybody that wants to see something positive going on in public ed right now. Share this video, and I think they'll be impressed. So thank you very much. Everybody make it a great day and a great week. And that's all for now. See you next time.